There's four specific concerns as you scroll down towards the bottom of page 1. And that the first is just entertaining additional exemptions. Each one is unique in its own right as far as industrial permit, commercial permit, whatever it may be. So it's really a case by case. I know most of the conversation has been around exterior wood specifically with the treatment process that they have in place. The second is actually drafting the code and making it specific for each industry or business depending on their type of treatment or what type of stormwater treatment they have in place. Councilmember Russell had spoken earlier about the water and sewer connection fees for the Best Western. When they approached us at that point within our municipal code, we did not have specific verbiage to be able to accommodate Mr. Hajari. At that point, we worked through it and got a ratio that was worked on by the consultant and staff and then ultimately approved by council. My recommendation at this point would move similar to that. Not saying that exterior wood doesn't potentially deserve a further discount, but there's also other businesses and industries within Washougal that may dovetail into that as well. To be able to take the time and do the thorough analysis to identify that and get it codified and vetted through the workshop and council process would be staff's recommendation at this point. Moving on to number 3, rather than protected, that's actually should be projected. Currently, we're working under 2010 budget projections for the stormwater utility. Obviously, this would have an impact mid-budget year if we did do or consider a further discount for specific industries or businesses. And on top of that, the capital outlay, even though we don't have significant projects that we're trying to accomplish in this calendar year, in 2010, it does depend on that specific revenue stream and rate structure that's been set up. So looking at the industrial, commercial, looking for further discounts if it's warranted, would roll into the ERU assessment as well as the budget projections and the capital outlay for our actual facility plan for the stormwater utility. And then the fourth piece is the site assessment. Like I mentioned earlier, when we worked with Gray and Osborne to do the stormwater utility formation, we actually did that off of GIS mapping, I believe. There was quite a few assessments that weren't accurate, had multiple parcels in the port that were assumed to be impervious. They were actually pervious surfaces. So we've had a lot of justification and working back and forth with business owners and industries on exactly what type of impervious square footage they have. So at this point, and I would be the last to want to RFP or spend additional city funds on additional consultation specifically from engineering. I do see that a lot of the work could be done in-house by staff, but there is some site assessment and review of industrial permits that the industries hold or the businesses hold that would need to be reviewed, would need to be drilled down into to see the treatment type, the significant impact or lack of impact to the city's stormwater utility, and then formal recommendations move through the process up to the council and mayor.
So long story short, what we're trying to do in this, it would appear that as we open this door, it's a wider door than what we initially anticipated. Rather than do an immediate change to something that may satisfy one business but still have a negative impact to the utility itself, I've asked Trevor's staff to not put it on the back burner. It's going to stay on the top of the pile, but we need to sort through it so that if we're going to go through and amend this and know what that means and what the potential impact is to both residents and other businesses, let's go through that painful process once, rather than do it again, and then have another come up and do it again, and have another come up and do it again, and keep changing where it goes in there. As Trevor noted, when this thing went together, it was bare bones to begin with, and we're kind of moving backwards in the process as we go, and that certainly isn't going to bode well either for the budget, for the auditors, or anybody else along the way.
Yeah, Mayor Guard also mentioned that we met with Charlie Bishop. We were also talking about the water sewer rate increases that were implemented. Obviously, stormwater topic came up. The ERU assessment, Pendleton's one of the top 3. Stormwater, ERU, parcels within the utility, I believe. I think it's Exterior and Pendleton. Yeah, and then I think Washougal School District is in there as well. But there are some large assessments, and short of doing some field analysis and diving into specific permits on exactly what these businesses are accomplishing, to be able to discharge either to our system or their standalone system, I think needs to be researched in a little bit more in depth, more thorough analysis.
I appreciate this, the way that you've laid it out. There are a couple of points that I wanted to discuss as we're discussing the idea of how we're going to go about any future changes to the system. You mentioned in the second paragraph on the first page there that the industries do not capture, treat, or detain stormwater from the public right-of-way which they utilize every day. And I agree with that statement. I mean, of course, that's obviously true. The challenge with that one, though, is that we can't tax the right-of-way. And if we did, we would have tolls on every vehicle that came through the town. And so I would suggest to the council, from my perspective, that it has to be, I mean, either we have toll roads or else we assume that cost, but we can't assume that the stormwater facility has to start taxing each businesses based on that, unless we're going to do it by how many axles, how many wheels they have, or how many vehicles they drive, and tax that. But if we're taxing impermeable surface, which is the system that we have set up, it makes sense that we disregard that component of the equation. That would be my first recommendation. And I appreciate the fact that we are going to continue working on this and making sure that we don't make a quick, rash decision and then have to deal with the consequences of all sorts of appeals from all different angles. It does make sense for us to make sure that we are very careful with how we go about this. And so I'll have further comments, but I want to hear other comments before I get into anything else.
Dave? Trevor, you've indicated a concern about having to use engineering support from outside to do the assessments. Is there any reason we can't charge a fee that would cover that?
If you're going to argue with your amount, then you pay for the analysis.
Precisely.
Yeah, we have a budgeted amount within the stormwater utility for professional services. Those specific projects or needs that come up throughout the year. Obviously, I'd like to have an RFP on this, depending on exactly what the direction is from council, how far we want to drill into the specifics. Obviously, Councilmember Delabar talked about axles and, some of those really drilled down specifics. But with the way it was set up, bare bones, there's room for improvement. That was the intent to get to phase 2. We haven't gotten to that point yet.